Okay, flutes, let's get started on this How to Train Your Dragon show, huh? I'm going to start with some real basics, like putting the flute together, some apps that you're going to find useful for looking up fingerings and trill fingerings, and then get into working on some real basic parts of the opener. So, first of all, if I haven't met you yet, if you are a rising freshman, we're so happy to have you in the Lee High School Band. This is our show shirt from last year. I'll try to feature some different shirts throughout this process. So, notice I don't have my flute out. I'm going to show you how to put this together in the way that I think is most useful for you. So I start with my head joint. Grab the body. I'm going to use all of the specific words to describe the parts of the flute. So head joint, body. As I'm putting the head joint in, I'm double checking that my embouchure hole, which is the hole in your lip plate, is somewhat in line with that first key on the body. It's actually a key that we don't press, but it helps line up the head joint. And then I take my foot joint, and what I'm looking for here is that the rod that goes up the foot joint, this long piece, that needs to point up the center of the last key on the body. It looks really nice when the two rods are in line, the body rod and the foot joint rod, but that's not how the flute's actually meant to be put together. Wouldn't that be nice if it were, though? So just twist it until it's pointing up the center of this last key. My flute is open holed. For marching band, if you have an open hole flute, that's okay as long as you can plug it. Because of some of the posture you're going to be asked to do in marching band, it's actually almost impossible to cover the holes correctly while you're marching. And I don't want anyone to have a hand injury, so if you have open holes, make sure you get the plugs. If you need help getting plugs, let me know or let Mr. G know. We'll get them for you. So I got my flute together. Wonderful. We'll get to that in a minute. The next thing I want to show you is an app to download on your phone or your tablet. And it's called Finger Charts. That's really hard to see, isn't it? It's right here. When you search for it in the App Store, for some reason it's not always the first app that pops up, even though that's the only app with that name. I don't know why. But it's a mint green color and it says flute on it, so you know you find the right one. It should be free. But the Finger Charts app, you'll figure it out after you spend a couple minutes on it. You can find the fingering for any note, any natural note, flat note, sharp note. And then it also has all the fingerings for trills. And there is one trill in the opener. So when we get to that part in the music, I'll show you how to look up the trill fingering for that. Please don't make up trill fingerings. They're real fingerings. Don't ignore them. Okay, so you got your flute together. You've downloaded your Finger Charts app. The first thing that I would do when I look at a new piece of music is I scan through it, not to try to learn it in my head or try to really break down any of it, but to look for things I don't know. I look for terms I don't know, because a lot of music uses Italian, right? So if there's a word, or sometimes French. So if there's a word you don't know, look it up. Go to Google. So I'm looking for words I don't know. I'm looking for maybe notes I don't know. Sometimes in sit-down band, really low flute notes, we don't play that often. So if there's a really low note in a piece that I haven't learned yet, I would have to look up that fingering on my app. Or if there's a really high note I haven't learned yet, I need to look up that fingering on my app. And then what I do is completely out of context, no music in front of me, I just practice that fingering in some sort of scale maybe. So let's say I'm learning high F, which is in this piece. You're going to need to learn high F. I would just use an F major scale to practice that F after I'm confident that I've memorized the fingering. So I've learned F. I just looked up the fingering on my app. I'm playing the F. Maybe what I do to test my memory is I put the flute down and I pick it back up and I see if I can still put my fingers on the right keys for the F, making sure I've memorized the fingering. Okay, I've got it memorized, so now maybe I play the F scale and see if I can play the note in context now. Okay, wonderful. So that's how I would practice any new notes for you out of context of the music at all. Now, what we're going to get into today, we're just going to look at the opener. And we're not even going to look at the whole thing, but I want you to see what I've done to my opener. If you want to pause it here, you can pause it so you can really take a look at what I've done. I've color-coded the different sections that I found. So at the beginning I noticed there was like an introduction, so I called that the intro. And then I noticed in the flute part, because we often play the melody as a flute player, I found that measure 16 is where the theme starts, or what I call the melody. So I blocked that off in red. And I noticed that that theme or melody comes back a few more times, so I also blocked off those sections in red. And then I noticed in the middle there was some transitional material. They didn't really look like melody to me, so I kind of blocked those sections off in a different color. And then at the very end, I kind of called that a coda or an outro. And I blocked that off with the same colors I blocked the intro. When I make sections like that, I like to use colors, and it really helps me in my memorization. If this is the first time you've memorized music, I would encourage you to do some type of color scheme. Then you can see on the page where the same material is happening over and over again. So like this looks like 7 whole lines of music to memorize. But like at least 4 of those lines is the melody that's just repeating. So it breaks it down for you and makes it a little less overwhelming, I think. And I mean, colors are great. So, okay, so that's how I organized the opener. I just did that. Oh, I also used yellow, if you can see it, to highlight any time changes and time signature changes and key signature changes, just to bring it to my awareness so that when I'm reading through it, I know that something is changing. I used yellow because it's kind of a light color, but it kind of also draws the eye in context. Okay, today we're just going to work on the theme, the melody. It comes back 3 times in this piece, and each time it comes back, it's pretty much the same, which helps. Every now and then, like, you get a piece where the theme comes back, but it's a little different in this measure, and that makes it challenging to memorize. But this theme is pretty much the same every time it comes back. Before we break down the theme, I want to show you some triplet material. This piece is written in 4/4, or mostly like something that's over a 4. So we have a lot of triplets. I want you to just kind of look at this. You can pause it if you want. So this triplet takes up the time of a quarter note in music. It takes up a beat. Triplet, triplet, triplet. Whereas a quarter note would be one sound, ba, ba, ba. The triplet is 3 sounds, 3 equal sounds in that same beat. Triplet, triplet, or 1 alla, 2 alla, 3 alla, 4 alla, 1 alla, 2 alla, 3 alla, 4 alla. This triplet also takes up a quarter note, but it's beamed differently. It's not 3 equal sounds anymore. Now it's a short sound followed by a longer sound. There's actually a fancy name for this in music. We call it a Scottish snap. So instead of triplet, 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 it is triplet, 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 triplet. This triplet, still taking up just 1 quarter note of time, is a sustained rest followed by 1 little sound at the end. So here's what that sounds like. I'm going to give us 4 beats to just get the time. Lit, 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 lit. Usually this triplet is going to be used as a pickup feeling note into the next rhythm that you see. This one doesn't happen too often, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. Okay, let's listen to the theme. What you'll notice about my playing is I am quite under tempo. I'm being very careful that I pick a tempo that is so slow that I can't miss a note. Okay, this is what I call like our practice tempo. I'm being very careful with the pitches, the rhythm, and especially the articulation. The articulation is huge in this theme. You see a lot of the carets, marcatos, and you see a lot of accents, and there's actually some slurs too. So we have to be very careful that we're adhering to what's on the page. Here's the theme. This is 16 to the end of the theme. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. The only thing that, let's see, it's a 4-bar phrase followed by a 4-bar phrase. The only thing that makes it different the second time is that the high, the ending of it stays high instead of going down into the staff like it does at measure 4. So that would be 16, measure 20. All right, so I took it very slow. As you're learning this, you'll realize it's only about 4 notes. It's A flat, B flat, F, C, D flat, E flat. So what is that, like 5 or 6? It's not that many notes to memorize. And I want to introduce you to a new fingering called thumb B flat. It's possible that this is the fingering you know for B flat. Thumb, 1, 1, pinky. Nothing wrong with that. It's certainly a B flat. But I would like you to practice this new fingering. If you look at your thumb key, there's the long part, which is the thumb key we usually push. But right next to it is this like round looking little knobby button. That's a key. This is called the B flat key, thumb B flat key. You can push this key down in this segment of the piece for any note that needs thumb. So just because you're not playing a B flat doesn't mean you have to move your thumb over. So A flat, you can use this key. For F, you can use this key. For B flat, you can certainly use that key. C doesn't use thumb, so you would just lift it, just like normal. E flat, you can use it. This makes it, when you go from A flat to B flat with the old fingering, we have what's called a cross fingering because both hands are moving. If you use thumb B flat, I got my thumb key on now, all you have to do to go from A flat to B flat is just lift here because your thumb's on that B flat key. So it just avoids a cross fingering. It's going to help your technique. So we've looked at the theme. Now let's jump to 37. This is the next time the theme comes back. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So that theme is only 4 measures. You don't do the whole 8-measure theme. And then there's secondary material at 42. Now let's jump to 61. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And that's like a 3-measure theme instead of 4 even. So that's an even more condensed version of the theme. But every time the theme comes back, it really is the same rhythm, the same articulation, and the same just pattern overall. So that's where I want you to start with this piece. You can practice playing along with me, along with this video, or you can turn off the video completely and practice it on your own. But either way, that's step 1 before we move on to learning other parts of the piece. Feel free to jump ahead to other sections of the opener as you feel comfortable, but I really want your focus to be on the melody. And what you can even start to do as you're playing it, try to make yourself look away every now and then. When you see my eyes coming to the camera, that means I'm trying to play a little bit by memory. So watch this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So I was kind of going back and forth. I had a little bit of confidence, but I'd only played through it once, so I didn't have too much confidence to be really off script. But start doing that now. Just move your eyes away from the music, and you're playing by memory. Okay, that's it for today. Sorry this was a little longer than I thought it was going to be, but I think it's worth your time. See you guys later.